On my lands, we are live again with another episode of this amazing podcast. Welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Jay Connor, also known as the Private Money Authority, and I've got another amazing guest to join me today. If you're new to the show, you may not know that for the past 4 years, we're almost starting the fifth year of this podcast. I've had just amazing guests come on here, and today is no exception. My guest today is actually the owner of an Inc. 5000 real estate investment company. And in addition to that, he's been investing in real estate all the way back to 2001. And listen to this. I thought I had done a lot of rehabs and flips of over 450 houses. Well, my guest has flipped over 1,000 flips. Well, since my guest has automated his real estate investing business, he concentrates his time on helping other real estate investors like you and myself through his masterminds, through gap funding, and television program that shows real estate investors how to grow their business through television commercials. I'm so excited to have one of my fellow mastermind members, Tony Javier. Tony, welcome to the show.
What is up, Jay? What a great introduction. I've been introduced a lot of times, but that is honestly one of the best introductions that I have had. So I appreciate that.
Well, man, I appreciate you telling me that. I mean, it's pretty exciting to introduce a guest here on the show that's done over 1,000 flips, and you've been in the business since 2001. I mean, you've got a boatload of experience. So why don't we start, Tony, with, first of all, tell everybody where you're from, what market you're in, what market you invest in. And from there, tell us how you even got started in real estate.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Wichita, Kansas. That's where I started my real estate investing business. I've got a team there that runs my operation there. As you mentioned, I've got that automated where I don't really spend a lot of time in that business anymore. I live in San Diego now. I've been here about 6 years. And so, real estate has been such a great vehicle over the years. 20 years ago is when I got started. And I actually stumbled across real estate. Carlton Sheets no down payment system. I think, I know you've heard of that. And a lot of people have bought that course. But out of many people that I've heard about that course, most people put it on the shelf and just kind of let it gather dust. Well, I took it and I ran with it. And within about, I bought the course in April of 2001. And then literally, I think it was like a week or two before 9/11, so before September 11th, I had closed on my first two properties. No money down. And to this day, I still do the same thing where I raise money and buy deals with pretty much no money out of my pocket. I could use my money to fund those deals now, but I actually take that money and now lend to other real estate investors. So over the last 20 years, it's gone from, the grind of it, the raising the money, the doing the deals, looking at properties and all that kind of stuff. And it's just to evolve finally into a true business where I'm very hands off in my real estate investing business. We still do a ton of flips a year. And I love, just what you said, helping real estate investors with many different aspects of their business. Automation, which I struggled with for a long time. I was very, very deep in my business for probably the first 12 years. I mean, I was grinding, spending 60 to 80 hours a week, on my business. And now I'm able to work a few hours a week in that business. And I run mastermind groups. I fund deals for people with my gap funding, which is basically, bringing the down payment money to deals. And then the biggest thing that I love right now is getting real estate investors on TV. It's a very untapped marketing channel. It's something I've been doing for 10 years now. I was one of the first investors around the country to do TV for real estate investing. And now we help other real estate investors get on TV and crush it in their market as well.
That's fantastic, Tony. I got a question for you. Your real estate investing business, you mentioned, is totally automated. What does your team look like?
Yeah, so it's kind of ebbed and flowed throughout the years. For the first 10 years, it was a lot of testing, right? Now there's people that teach it and kind of can tell you, and even I can kind of like draw out what a real estate investing business should look like. But for a long time, it was a lot of trial and error. So, I hired a lot of the wrong people. I had to fire my staff twice to give you an idea of how stressful and how bad it was, back then. But the team basically has different departments. So we have an acquisitions department, we have a marketing department, we have a lead manager, we own a lot of rental properties, so we have a property management department. We've got transaction coordination. So when I talk to people about building their business and kind of outlining what it looks like, there's just different departments that you need to have within your real estate investing business. And then as you start hiring people, taking some of the lowest level activities that you can think about in those different segments of your business, and maybe hiring one person to take on some of those. Eventually, you can hopefully get it to where, you have, I think right now we have like 6 or 7 people in our office between lead managers, property managers, acquisitions and all that good stuff. And then we have about 5 or 6 guys out in the field that are doing punch list items on properties, maintenance on our rental properties, and things of that nature. So yeah, that's kind of a broad overview of what our team looks like. And it took a while to build it out, but now it's a really, really well-oiled machine that runs without me. So good stuff.
I can really relate to your story. My wife, Carol Joy, and we're here in Eastern North Carolina, and we started investing in single family houses 2 years after you did. We started in 2003, went full time in 2004. And from 2003 until really about 2010, I was doing the crazy stuff, 60 hours a week, stopping in all my properties all the time. My wife, Carol Joy, was, doing book work until 10 o'clock at night. And I remember one evening I came around the corner and walked into the kitchen, and Carol Joy had tears coming down her face. And I said, "Babe, what in the world is wrong?" And she said, "I can't handle it anymore." And she said, I said, "What do you mean you can't handle it anymore?" She says, "It's too much." And I tell you, Tony, I made a commitment that night at 10 p.m. that I would work on automating this business to where it could run without me, and where all I had to do was make a few decisions every now and then and not see my Carol Joy crying at night. I said, listening to your story just reminds me of my story, and the fact you can be making over $1 million a year net, and it's not worth it if your business is running you and you're not running your business.
Totally agree with that. I hit some pain points. I mentioned firing my staff twice. The second time I had to do it, I had one person that was stealing from me, technically 2. And then I had 3 of my employees living in my properties, had to fire them all within about a 30-day time period for different reasons.
Wow.
And so that's when people look at hitting the bottom as very stressful. And at the time you're like, can I ever get out of it? And that type of thing. But really, as it hits a pain point where you're like, I've got to make a change. Right. And that just drives you to make those changes. And I ended up hiring a coach shortly after that happened, that basically didn't look at properties. He didn't meet with sellers, buyers, the whole gamut. I didn't even realize that was possible, to be honest with you, at that time. And so that's the message I like to get out, is you don't have to be there in the business every single day and every aspect of your business. But unfortunately, people get into business for money and for time. And guess what they have? No money, no time.
You're right. You're right, man. And you're right. It really sometimes does take some significant pain in order to grow and to, really, get better. Well, the 2 main topics, and you've got so many specialties, but the 2 main topics that I want to interview you about, Tony, on the show today is, first of all, I want us to talk a little bit about gap funding. That's one of your expertise. You've got a lot of experience in raising private money like I do. And I really want to hear you talk about, this thing called television and how in the world that, that's working for you and other real estate investors. So let's start with gap funding. You mentioned it briefly, but let's just make sure everybody understands. What is the definition of gap funding?
Yeah. So about 4 years ago, I had a hard money lender come to me and say, "Hey, I can get a lot of different investors approved for first mortgage financing, first position lending, but they don't have the money to put down on the property. They don't realize how much money it takes to put down, how much it takes for the closing cost. And then after the closing, they've got holding costs. They've got to pay the interest. They've got to pay the utilities. There's, different expenses even after you close. And so he said, I've lent money on a few of these deals because they're really good borrowers. And, the deals went well. And he's like, I'm helping people do these deals they normally wouldn't be able to do. So he started sending me deals and I started funding them on the side. Just, hey, I'll fund that deal, whatever. And then I realized two things. One, it's a really good return because we do have to charge higher rates on a second. But then we were also meeting a need that wasn't out there. There's onesie, twosie real estate investors that do gap funding on a small basis, but there's no big lenders out there that are doing gap funding on a large level. So I thought to myself, wow, this is a huge opportunity for us to help people and really build a business. So about a year and a half ago, I decided to create a company out of it. And so we're lending deals all over the country where we bring the down payment money and closing costs. And then the borrower gets the first position lined up. And actually recently we just decided to start doing first lien positions as well. That way we can just do it all under one umbrella. And so when someone comes to us, basically, as long as the deal works, we can fund the deal 100% by bringing first position lending in and then bringing on top of it gap funding to where the investor has very little or no money invested in the deal. Of course, they're still going to have to, make interest payments and they're still going to have holding costs and things like that. But allows them to do more deals or to do deals they normally couldn't have done just because they don't have the money to do them.
That's fantastic. Well, there's no doubt you are filling a big, big need there, Tony. I need to get you introduced to my mastermind group.
Sounds great. I'd love to do some business.
I hear that story, and I want to go ahead and tell the audience. I'm known as the Private Money Authority. So if you don't mind, Tony, I'm just going to digress for just 30 seconds and come right back to our interview. And I want us to move into television, but I want to let everybody know, Tony, the biggest question I get from real estate investors, brand new ones and seasoned ones, is I need the money. I need the money. I need the money. And folks, I just want you to know I'm so excited. I just finished writing this new money guide, which is called 7 Reasons Why Private Money will skyrocket your real estate business and help you build incredible wealth. If you've never raised any private money, this will teach you how to raise private money without ever asking anybody for money and get you on the fast track. You can download this money guide absolutely for free at www.jayconner.com/money guide. Again, that's jayconner.com/money guide. Get you on the fast track to private money. So let's move to this television thing, Tony, that you've really become an expert at. So first of all, tell everybody, how did you get into, and what triggered this, no pun intended, channel of locating motivated sellers?
Yeah. So I've been in business 20 years now and about 10 years into the business, I guess it was about 12. I met a friend through a networking event, or met someone through a networking event, became a friend. He invited me to a poker game. So I go to this poker game, his friend of a friend, and this guy walks down the stairs. So in Kansas, we have basements. So we walk down the stairs this guy walks down the stairs and I'm like, that guy's on TV. I'm like, that's super cool. I get this celebrity factor in my head of like, man, I've seen this guy on TV a bunch. So anyway, sits down at the poker table, pretty much next to me. It might've been, a couple seats next to me. And so I just started talking to him like, hey man, I see you on TV. Like, how are your commercials doing for you? And he's like, that is the game changer. He's like, we've been doing TV for a long time and it's the only lead channel we have. We do $2 million of business just from TV by itself. And so I started drilling about it a little bit because I'm curious. And he's like, I'll tell you what, why don't you call my media guy, Drew? He's the one that got me on TV. He's the one that runs all my ads, all that good stuff. So I called Drew the next day and, asked him about TV. And he's like, yeah, let me look at some stations. Let me see if I can put something together for you. So he puts the schedule together for me and says, hey, does this look good for you? And I said, yeah, that's great. Let me put the script together. We'll go in there. I'll go in there. I'll shoot the commercial. And he kind of talks me through it. And within about 30 to 45 days, I had a TV commercial and I was on the air. And so my first month I spent $3,000, and the first month I made $35,000 that month.
Hey,
So it
that's
just,
not a bad ROI starting out like brand new on TV.
nope, right out of the gate, right out of the gate. So, so that was 2012. So that's how it started. And then as I started going to high level masterminds and all these events, I would tell people I'm doing TV, and they're like, TV? What are you talking about? Why would you do TV? Isn't that too broad of an audience? Isn't that just for branding, all that kind of stuff? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm getting a 5 to 10x return on my money. Like it's great branding, but I'm also getting really good returns. And it's helping all kinds of other aspects to my business. It's helping me raise private money, because when someone refers someone that has money to me, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen you on TV. That's such an easy conversation. It helps our direct mail. It helps so many other things. So anyways, I go to these masterminds. Everyone's like, what are you talking about TV? You mentioned a high level mastermind earlier today. When I went 6 years ago, it was me and one other guy out of 100 and some real estate investors doing a ton of deals. We were the only two doing TV in that whole group. And so it's been a blue ocean for a long time, and it's still a blue ocean. So about a year and a half ago, it's been almost 2 years ago, someone talked me into helping real estate investors get on TV. So I went to my media guy, Drew, and I said, hey, I've got the scripts. We've tested the different stations. We tested the different shows. Like, we've got a good formula. Pretty sure it's going to work in other markets. Are you willing to give it a test run in other markets? And he's like, yeah, he's been doing media 20 plus years. He can buy anywhere. And he's done it for so long and bought, TV throughout the country. So it was second nature to him. And same results started happening with our clients. First month, they were popping deals that put them in the black very quickly. And so we've scaled it up, and we're managing TV commercials for about 120 real estate investors around the country.
Wow.
And it's one of those channels that it's a blue ocean. There's very few, if any, people doing it in most markets. And, there's so many other benefits outside of just the ROI, as some of them I mentioned. So yeah, it's taken on a life of its own. And, I'm pairing the gap funding with the TV. They're both blue oceans, and, people are coming to us for a lot of different needs. So we can drive leads to you through TV. We can help you gap fund them on the back end. And that's just been two great businesses that have worked together really well.
Wow, that is fantastic. So am I assuming correctly that all of your clients' television ads are what we call direct response ads?
They are, yes. So they're not just branding. It's not, when you have these big companies that do billboards and TV, I hate them because they don't have like a call to action, right? They're showing their logos, they're telling a story, and it's just like, they're confusing, right? For us, it's direct, like, hey, if you're looking to sell your house, give us a call today. And I even have a line that I say in all my commercials. If you're even thinking about selling your home, give us a call today at 685-SELL. That's 685-7. So we have all these formulas that we've tested with these scripts, and they work well. And so, yeah, we have a very specific call to action. We tell them exactly what we do, and it drives calls and drives results.
So in your television ads, is the only call to action a telephone number for them to call, or do you give a website, or only a telephone number?
No, we do a telephone number, and then we do a website at the end, because there's some people that just want to research you, right? And if they don't have your phone number, or they don't have your website, they're going to Google and they're going to find your competition, right? So we put our website in there. But here's the thing about TV is anybody can do it, but not everybody can do it right. There's so many different pieces to what you have to do. So you have to go to the right stations. You have to buy the right shows. You have to negotiate the right rates. You have to get a phone number that's easy to remember. You got to get a website that's easy to remember. You got to have a clear call to action. You had to have a format of the commercial that's very easy for people to understand what you do. Because I've had other real estate investors either try to get on TV and they couldn't put all the pieces together. It's way too difficult. Or they put pieces together and they just didn't do it right. And so we've actually had quite a few people come to us and said, hey, I know TV works. We weren't able to do it. And we just put a few tweaks of what they're doing and we make it work. So I say that because it's not something you just want to throw money against the wall to make it stick, right? I did in the beginning and luckily it worked out. But we've had a lot of people try it. And that's another reason that there's not many people that get on TV is because they either, if they think about it, It's too difficult for them to do because there's so many pieces. And even if they do think, or actually some people think about it and they're like, it's too expensive or it's just not for me, right? Even those, or especially those that say, I'm not good on TV, I can't do it, right? So we actually have some clients that come to us and I shoot the commercial for them. So we help them on that side of it as well to get their brand on TV. So yeah, it's been interesting just kind of seeing the evolution of TV and what we started with 10 years ago, and now how we progressed it into having our TV commercials run all throughout the country.
Well, that's fantastic. You've actually got a totally done for you service if somebody doesn't want to be on the camera.
Yeah. We have pretty much it's all done for you. And then if someone says we want you to shoot the commercial, it's like 99% done for you. All they have to do is approve the ad spend, approve the budget, and I do the commercial for them. So yeah, I actually have one client that's in 5 different markets, and he's spending over $100,000 a month. I think it's like closer to 150, and he's had to do almost zero work. He's like, I want to go here, shoot the commercial, give me the ad spend, and I'm going to go, right? He's just too busy to do all that. And most people are, right? And that's why, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that, when someone buys a course, they put it on the shelf. It's because they're so busy, right? And so when I launched this, I'm like, okay, I really want good success. I don't want to just sell a course. I don't want someone just, buy it and then never listen to the videos or whatever. It's like, no, I've got a really good guy on my team that can do the implementation or help me with it. And so when we rolled it out, it's like, we're just making it super dummy proof, where we know you're on the right shows. We know you're on the right stations. We know you have the right call to action, the right website, right phone number. It's all put together for you.
That is fantastic. Now, one thing you mentioned a moment ago, and if people were not listening really, really close, they could have missed it. One thing you said was you even have got to know the right shows, the right television shows to buy to get the kind of response. So are you saying there really are specific television shows that you and your team have identified that are going to work better to get responses and calls from motivated sellers?
100%. It's similar to like pulling a list for direct mail, right? If you want the best results, you pick the lowest hanging fruit. So when people do direct mail, they buy a list so that when they target people, they know they're more likely to sell. So when we've had clients come to us and say, hey, we checked into TV, it's way too expensive. Or, hey, I'm thinking about doing TV. Here's the budget that this station gave me. The stations are going to try and sell you the most expensive stuff, which most likely is not our demographic, right? So we've had people come to us and say, hey, I looked at your program and I think I'm going to do TV on my own. Not many people want to, but we've had a few do that. And I'm like, let me see your schedule. I'd like to see it. Yeah, I'm not going to rip it off. I'll give you some free advice, right? So they'll show me the schedule and I'm like, why are you on HDTV? That makes no sense at all, right? The people that are looking on HDTV at shows, they already have money. They already have a house. They're looking for design ideas. That is not your demographic, right? And so, in the beginning, it was testing. It was like, hey, here's what we think our demographics watching based on, what the shows are and the times of day and all that kind of stuff. And then we proved it by taking that schedule that did well and adding other stuff on top of it and saying, okay, primetime news. Okay, does that work? Does that not? If it does, we keep it. If it doesn't, then, we take it out. And we test it for many months to make sure we have good data. So 100%, there are people that are your demographic that are watching watching certain commercials, certain times of day, or not certain commercials, but different shows that have the commercials that we're airing. And if you don't do it right, you're spending a lot of money on shows that don't have our demographic.
Well, Tony, I know the audience that is listening right now, they want to know, okay, Tony, let's pull the curtain back. Let's give us some, juju juice here. What are some of the shows that you and your team have identified to target that actually reaches the ideal demographics of a motivated seller?
Well, that's part of our formula. And unfortunately, we have a lot of clients that are running TV throughout the country. So I can't give you the formula because, we don't want a lot of competition for our clients. But just think about the shows that are either older people watching. And when I say older, we're, mostly 60 and up is what we're targeting, because they're either inheriting a property from, an 80 to 90-year-old parent, or they're looking to downsize and, get into something smaller, or potentially, move into assisted living at some point in time. And then also income demographics, right? So as you know, when you're buying properties from a motivated seller, they're typically not making a lot of money. So you just have to look at what the demographics are of someone that is potentially a little bit more of a lower income demographic. That's what we started with. That's what we started plugging in, and that's what we use all around the country.
That certainly makes sense. Now, I want to ask you a couple of questions before we wrap up, Tony, that's sort of on the bigger picture, that your answers to these two questions can really resonate with everybody. And the first question is, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently if you could start your business over?
Yeah, that's probably the number one question I get on podcasts. So I'm glad you asked that, because that is a very good question. So two things. One is, for the first 10 to 12 years, I basically tried to do everything myself, meaning that, I had employees, but employees can only think so far, right? So I didn't have a mastermind group. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a peer group. I didn't have someone like you, Jay, that I probably did have people similar to you, where I could call them and probably get advice, but I just didn't do it, right? So getting a coach, getting a mastermind group, and getting with high-level people like you, Jay, have been a game changer over the last 10 years. So that's number one, is getting help in many different forms. That could be, again, coaches, masterminds, all that kind of stuff. And then number two, I'm going to be a little biased, and that's TV. I wish I would have found TV sooner. I found TV was a little over 10 years, maybe closer to 12 years after I started my business. And it's the number one thing that has impacted my business, other than what I just mentioned with just getting help. So with TV, it's built credibility in my market. I'm a semi-celebrity in my market. So I live in San Diego. When I go to Wichita, people recognize me all the time, and they'll talk to me and, look at me differently and things like that, which, has its, pros and cons, obviously, but overall it's good. It's automated, right? So for those that don't like to pull lists, don't like to cold call, don't like to design direct mail and have to redo their mailing list every so often and redesign postcards, our commercials, when I run a commercial typically for a good 12 months at a time. There have been some commercials that I've tested, we know that haven't worked, that within a month to 3 months we aren't working, and we flip them back to our, better producing commercials. But the commercials that have done well have ran for 12 to 18 months at a time, and we don't touch it, right? So there's just a lot of different factors that, had I gotten into TV sooner, my business would have taken off faster, would have been more credibility, would have had a more automated business. And it's kind of interesting now when I get people come to me. I've been in the business for 20 years. So like when someone comes to me and they want to do TV and they've only been in business for a year, I'm like, I wish I had it when I was, a year in business, but are you really ready for it? But with all of the stuff that's out there now, and people being able to listen to podcasts and YouTube and things like that, they've got access to information. So they're crushing it out of the gate. And then they're coming to me after a year, and I'm like, man, you're really lucky that, number one, you crushed it out of the gate. Number two, you're able to add TV to what you're doing in such a short period, because it's really just going to amplify you that much faster. And it's not as expensive as you think. So, so I hope I answered your question there, Jay.
You did. One final question, Tony. And after you answer this, I'm going to let you tell everybody how they can continue the conversation with you and get in contact with you. So here's the big umbrella question. Whether you're in real estate or anything, any kind of business, from your experience and your experience, your advice, your opinion, what do you think is the overall secret to success?
Oh, I can tell you right now, it's people. It is people 100%. So, like I said, the first 10, 12 years of my business, I tried to do most things myself. I had some help. I hired some like low-level employees to take on some things, but I was doing acquisitions. I was doing I was actually answering the phone calls, going out on appointments, doing the marketing to drive those calls, managing the projects with the contractors. I was basically doing most things from A to Z and had a little bit of a support staff to come in and help me. And so what I did wrong there is two things. One is I didn't hire employees that were higher level enough. So if you look at the people that I hired back then to now, I mean, the level is just night and day. And the results show for it. It's just night and day different in results as well. And then two is I tried to take on too many departments, I had to wear too many hats. So what I suggest for people to do is to figure out what they love to do, what they're really good at doing, do those and that drive the results, which typically is money, right? Do those things first and figure out how to get rid of all the other stuff. If you can get rid of all the other stuff and you do what you love, do what drives results, and the money, things that are just higher level dollar activities, your business is going to change dramatically. And then also the people that I hire outside of my organization to run my Facebook ads, my YouTube ads, my, do my podcast, all that kind of stuff. Like back in the day, I would have done all that stuff myself, right? And so if you're looking to get to a certain level, do two things. One is find the right people. Well, first of all, figure out what you need to delegate and what you need to get rid of. And then two is find the right person and the right people to take those things on. There's a book called The Who by Dan Sullivan, and it talks all about that. Is when you want to get somewhere, don't say how I can do it, say who can get me there, right? So if you can get the people that can get you there on your team, you can project yourself to such a higher level. I run five different pretty high level businesses, and there's no way I'd be able to do it by myself. And there's no way I'd be able to do it with lower level and lower thinking employees. I had to hire up and hire some really good people to help me really scale up those businesses and do well with them. So,
well, with what you just said, Tony, you are living out and giving the advice that my dad gave to me decades ago. And that advice was dictate, delegate, and disappear.
There you go. I love it. That's what I did. I disappeared to San Diego. I'm like, see,
there
guys.
you go. There you go. You got out of your own way. So, Tony, I know we got a lot of people that want to connect with you. So what's the best way for them to connect with you and your team?
Yeah, most people connect with me about the TV program. So if you go to realestatemasterstv.com, again, realestatemasterstv.com, you can see if your market's available. We do only allow so many people per market, and we're selling out a lot of markets. So reach out right away if you're looking to get into your market. And then for the funding, you can go to my personal website, tonyjavier.com. And that actually has information about TV and gap funding and all the other stuff that I do. So if you're looking for funding, go to tonyjavier.com, click the gap funding button, and go there and get more information about it. And then if you have a deal, submit it to us and we'll take a look at it. My team can get deals done very quickly.
Yeah, so to make sure everybody that's listening knows exactly how to spell Tony's website for the gap funding, that's www.tony, Tony, Javier, Jav as in Victor, IER.com, TonyJavier.com. And that's for the gap funding. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time to join me and my audience on another amazing podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate you.
You bet you. Look forward to seeing you at our next mastermind meeting. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of the podcast. I'm so excited that you joined us. And we really appreciate it when you subscribe and you rate and you review. We really appreciate those 5-star ratings. Be sure and give us a review right behind it. Like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure and follow, subscribe, and tap that little bell so you don't miss out on any more notifications when we go live on the podcast. So I'm so excited that you joined us, everybody. Here's to taking your real estate investing business to the next level. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, wishing you all the best, and we'll see you right here on the next podcast. Javier.